Hi guys, welcome and who dat? I'm Joe, and today we're doing a way too early NFL mock draft for 2024 for our beloved Bless You Boys in black and gold, the New Orleans Saints. Now this is way too early. That's why dozens of content creators are doing them. That's why major sports outlets are doing them, because none of this is going to stand 3 months from now. But hey, it's fun. As a matter of fact, this is a hell of a lot more fun than watching a Dennis Allen-led New Orleans Saints team stink it up. So, none of the draft orders correct, because the season isn't even over yet. Haven't had the playoffs in the Super Bowl. The draft order's not correct. There's only one of these mock draft sites that actually include compensatory picks. So, the draft orders aren't going to be like this come March and April. Free agency hasn't happened yet. Lots of coaches are going to get fired. New blood's going to come in. So even what the team desires isn't even going to be the same later on as compared to right now. And then we're looking at college players who haven't even declared whether they're going to go back to school or come out yet. So the player pool isn't correct. Then you haven't had the scouting combine or the pro days. So the rankings of the players that actually do come out aren't even correct yet. Everything's way too early to be doing this. So, of course, we're going to do it. Now, there's 4 sites that I like to look at: Pro Football Network, Pro Football Focus, NFL Draft Buzz, NFL Mock Draft Database. NFL Mock Draft Database is the only site that has the compensatory picks. And, of course, the draft picks change with each final game of the regular season, and they're going to change, once the playoffs happen and then once compensatory picks are allocated. So today, and I'll probably do one from each site leading up to the scouting combine. So I'm going to probably have 3 or 4 way too early drafts, mock drafts. But after the scouting combine, after the pro days, after free agency, and when all the coaches and everything changes and we get a better grasp on what's actually going to happen at the end of April, then we'll probably take these mocks a little more seriously in April. Some of you probably hate mock drafts. You're tuning in just to see what your Saints are going to do. Well, if I was the GM, there's a couple of ways I could go about this. First, we're going to pull up the projected draft picks, and this is on Pro Football Network. They do not have compensatory picks allocated right now, so we are looking at, and this is before week 17, we're looking at the Saints having the 11th pick in round 1, the 45th pick in round 2, and that's Denver's pick, so whatever they do in the last 2 games is going to affect that pick. And then we don't pick again until the 5th round. We have 2 6th-round picks and a 7th-round pick. Now, we're probably going to get 3 compensatory picks. So eventually, this haul of 6 picks will have 3 more included. There'll probably be 2 6th-round picks and a 5th-round pick and a 7th-round pick, or probably 2 6s and a 7. Maybe a late 4, maybe a 5th, but probably 2 more 6s and a 7. So we'll have 9 picks all together with compensatory. But for this mock draft, we're only working with these 6 picks and only 2 picks in the first 4 rounds. So this is what we're working with. I'm looking at the Saints wanting a quarterback if we can make the move to go up and get, of course, Jayden Daniels. I don't think he's going to last past the 5th pick. So with each draft, I have an intention. I can go one way or the other, and I'm going to try. And every draft is different. So how the board falls, whether a team's willing to make a trade. So as far as these different sites go, I don't do trades on Pro Football Focus. They probably have the best player pool rankings, but I'm not subscribed to the site, so I can't make trades. I can usually only do one round at a time, so never 7 rounds. But I like to go to Pro Football Focus to see where player rankings are, and they are totally different with each site. With Pro Football Network, the site I'm on today, they have it's really hard to do trades in this mock draft scenario. So that's part of the problem with Pro Football Network. I have a problem with all of the player pools on every site. But with Pro Football Network, it's really hard to get a trade done. On NFL Mock Draft Database, it's easier to get trades done. The teams are more willing to do things, and there's a setting where you can make trades happen no matter what. I try not to be unfair when I go on that site. And then NFL Draft Buzz, it's hot and cold. You can make a lot of moves sometimes. Sometimes nobody will take anything. But that's a fun site to go to as well. So we're on Pro Football Network today. Here's our draft picks. And as the draft gets started, I'm trying to make a deal to get up into the top 5 to draft Jayden Daniels. It's going to cost me my first rounder and second rounder this year, plus a first rounder and a second rounder next year to get up into pick 5 or pick 6. That's what I'm thinking it's going to cost, but nobody's taking. So Jayden Daniels ends up getting drafted before I can make the move. And I mean, so they're probably wanting 3 number ones. And you can't offer a draft pick in 2026 on these sites. I'm thinking in reality, if you want to go from pick 11 to inside the top 5, it's probably going to cost you 3 number ones and a couple of number 2s. So I can't make the move for Jayden Daniels in this draft. And I feel like if Derek May or Jayden Daniels isn't there, I'm okay with Caleb Williams, but I'm not sure if I would take him with pick 11 if he somehow fell that far. I don't know. It'd probably be a big discussion. Derek May, yes. Jayden Daniels, yes. But other than that, I'm tempted to trade down in the first round and acquire extra picks. I don't like the fact that we only have 6 picks. I don't like the fact that we have that big gap between round 2 and round 5. I don't like that at all. The meat of every draft is in the 3rd and 4th round. That's the way I look at it. So my intention is, unless the perfect player is there, I'm going to trade down. So when pick 11 comes around, the only players at this point without Daniels or May on the board that I'm willing to pull the trigger on would be a starting left tackle, which would be the kid from Penn State, or Joe Alt from Notre Dame. Both of those guys are gone. So I'm interested in trading down. Now I'm going to limit myself in this draft to only initiating 2 trades. I don't want to hold the whole thing up. And with these sites, you can manipulate them sometimes and trade down forever and pick up ridiculous things. Like I say, Pro Football Network is stingy. So if I can make 2 trades happen, if I can initiate 2 and actually make them happen on this site, it'll be pretty good. But I will entertain whatever's offered to me. And that'll be about the extent of it as far as the trades go. So I'm at pick 11, and I get a phone call from Denver. They want my pick 11, and they're willing to give me their pick 14. And they're also willing to give me a 3rd round pick and a 4th round pick. And that's exactly what I'm looking for. I want a pick in the 3rd round and a pick in the 4th round because we have too many needs on this team. And there's a big gap there after 2 picks. You don't pick again to the 5th round. You're not going to get a good draft this year unless you make a move to acquire some mid-round picks. This trade by Denver's good for me. I've decided if without any left tackles on the board, if I'm going to pick this high and get a wide receiver, Neighbors isn't on the board at this point, by the way. If I'm going to get a wide receiver, I can get one later in the first round. If I'm going to get an offensive lineman, it's going to be a right tackle at this point, and I can get that at the end of the first round. So I don't mind trading down, and that's exactly what I do. Denver gets my 11th overall pick, and they also get my 7th round pick, pick 206. And in return, I get their 14th overall pick. I get the 3rd round pick, pick 79, the 4th round pick, pick 126. And I squeezed out a 5th round pick from them as well. That's why I threw in the extra 7th rounder, 5th round pick, and pick 136. So I moved down 3 spots in the first round, and I acquire a 3rd round pick, a 4th round pick, a 5th round pick, and I give them an extra 7th. So this is a good deal for me. Very good. I'm glad Denver offered it, and I'm willing to take it. By the way, Denver moved up to my number 11, and they drafted cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry. That's the guy they wanted so badly. So thanks, Sean Payton and Denver. Now I'm at pick 14. When pick 14 comes up for me, I like the way the draft board is set up. There's still a couple of right tackles that I'm interested in. There's still a couple of defensive players that I'm interested in. And there's still a couple of quarterbacks there as well. And then Arizona gives me a call. They want my 14th overall. They have the 16th overall. Am I willing to move down 2 more spots? I think ideally, if the Saints could trade down twice in the first round and pick up extra 3rd and 4th round picks, still get a good offensive lineman at the end of the first round, that is an ideal scenario if we can't get Jaden Daniels. So I'm willing to do this for Arizona because they're going to give me the 66th overall pick. That's a 3rd rounder. I go ahead and initiate this trade. I'm also able to swap 5th rounders with them. I give them 136. They give me 130. So I'm moving up 6 spots in that 5th round pick. But the majority, the main thing about this move is picking up that 3rd round pick. Good deal. Now I'm picking at 16 overall. Arizona at 14 took the edge rusher Chop Robinson. So now I'm at 16. And now I have 9 draft picks, including 2 3rd round picks and a 4th round pick, plus an extra 5th round pick that's coming before the 5th round pick we had to begin with. So not bad. I've picked up 4 picks between round 2 and our pick in round 5. That is where the meat of the draft is. That's what I want to get accomplished. I like this. So with pick 16 in the first round, the New Orleans Saints select right tackle Talise Fuaga out of Oregon State. He played right tackle his whole college career. He's a massive dude, 6 foot 6 inches, 334 pounds. I think he's pro ready. And I think that Ryan Ramczyk is probably going to retire sooner than later. Best case scenario for Ryan Ramczyk is he's healthy enough to finish out his contract. He remains a good Pro Bowl player. He doesn't have to miss that many games. And for the next couple of years, Ramczyk's still our starting right tackle. Well, I'm fine with that. Fuaga's going to be in a 5-year contract. He'll give him a couple of years to get pro ready. Chances are, if Ryan Ramczyk decides to play 2 more years, he's probably going to miss some games. Fuaga's going to get some valuable playing time in his first couple of years. And then by year 3, Ram will be gone, and we've got our starting right tackle. But I'm leaning more towards Ramczyk's going to retire, and Fuaga's going to be our starter right out of the gate. I like this a lot. And I like this a lot because we address a position of need with a really good player, and we get those extra 4 picks where a lot of the great players are at. So that's your first round pick, Fuaga at right tackle. Now, this is when I initiate my first trade that I'm going to initiate. And this is a big one. A lot of you guys aren't going to like this because I'm really dealing with our division rival, the Carolina Panthers. The second round starts, and the Panthers have the first pick in the second round, pick 33 overall. I am interested in that pick because I want the pick of the litter in the second round. I'm picking at 45 right now, and if I can move up to 33, there's a couple players there that won't be there at 45, and there's a couple players there I'm willing to go up to get. Now, what do I do to sweeten the deal for Carolina? Because they don't want to move down 12, 13 spots. So this is where you guys are going to be mad, because I'm giving the Carolina Panthers our first round pick next year. I consider pick 33 as close to a first round pick as you can get. And with my first round pick next year, the Carolina Panthers are not only willing to give me the first pick in the second round, they're going to give me the first pick in the third round. They're going to give me the first pick in the fourth round. All I have to do is I'm swapping seconds with them. And all I have to do is throw in a fifth. So there you go. That's the blockbuster trade. Carolina gets my first round draft pick. Look, I tried to use it to move up and get Daniels. Nobody wanted it. And maybe next year, when we don't have a first round pick, you guys will be upset. But I get the first pick in the second round. They get my second round pick. Okay, but I still have a second round pick, and I actually have the option to trade down now with that pick. And it would be an option. I could see myself trading down a couple of more times and still getting a better player than the player I would get at 45. But this is the way it is. I get 33 overall, 65 overall, 97 overall. So now the new draft board looks like this, with the 33rd overall pick, and then 3 third-round picks, 2 fourth-round picks, a fifth and 2 sixths. I'm pretty good at this point. 10 overall picks. And there's a player at 33 that I really want. And it's a quarterback with the 33rd pick. In the second round of the 2024 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select quarterback Michael Penix Jr. out of Washington. He is a first-round graded player. He's had injuries in his career. A lot of people think he'll slip into the second round because of that. On this particular site, on this particular day, he does. I'm thinking that in the second round, if the Saints want to entertain Bo Nix or Michael Penix, maybe even J.J. McCarthy, then I'm okay with that. So you give up a first-round pick next year, but you get a quarterback at the top of the second round, and he may be the quarterback of the future for your team. And now you got that extra third, that extra fourth to go. I like the way this sits. We've got an offensive tackle. We've got a quarterback for the future. And we still have 5 picks to go before the 5th round. So, yeah, that was my intention. Before we had a first, a second, and we didn't pick again until the 5th. Now we have a first-round draft pick in Fuaga, a second-round draft pick in Penix, and we have 4 picks before that 5th round. This makes me happy. So, I stay put in the 3rd round where I'm at for all 3 picks. And when the first pick in the 3rd round comes up with pick 65 overall, the New Orleans Saints select offensive tackle Patrick Paul out of Houston. Bona fide left tackle. He is pro ready. Will he last till the 3rd round? Well, he goes at the bottom of the 2nd, early 3rd in most of these mocks right now. And some of you guys might be thinking, oh my God, another offensive lineman. Well, yeah, we need 2 offensive tackles because of Ramczak's injuries and because we're not good on the left side. We also need a left guard because Hurst isn't very good, and there's an argument to be made to get a right guard because Ruiz isn't that good, although He's got 3 years left on his big fat contract, and he's a first-round draft pick. So, but I would be completely happy with the Saints taking 2 offensive tackles with their first 2 picks. In this instance, we get an offensive tackle and a quarterback, and with the first pick in the 3rd round, we're able to grab another offensive tackle. Patrick Paul's going to work out fine at left tackle. He's going to beat out Trevor Penning. And now we've got bookend tackles to go with our brand new quarterback. Pretty stoked about this. Patrick Paul is 6'7", 315 pounds. And yeah, although he played at Houston, he is pro ready. He's got the longest arms in the draft. And yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. Worst case scenario, we have to go with our first round Trevor Penning. Maybe Penning turns a corner and he's great. But I don't think we're going to have Andres Pete anymore. I don't think Penning's going to be ready to move up. And I'm not ready to put James Hurst back at left tackle. So very excited with this. And with the very next pick 66 overall, the 3rd round pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select Christian Haynes, offensive guard out of UConn. Wow. 3 offensive linemen in the first 4 picks. We've grabbed a bunch of 3rd rounders and 4th rounders, and this is what we're doing with it. I am serious about getting better in the trenches. Now, Christian Haynes, 6'2", 313 pounds. He played right guard at UConn his whole career there. Can he make the switch to left guard? I don't know. If he can and he can beat out James Hurst, that would be great. If he's the kind of guy that's got to stay on the right side, okay. You're a 3rd round pick. Go in there and see if you can beat out Ruiz. If you can't, we might end up getting rid of Ruiz after a year or 2 if we can get out of the contract. Ruiz has been performing horribly over the course of this season. So you have options there. Can Christian Hayes switch to the left side and beat out James Hurst? Maybe. Or maybe he just stays at right guard and we eventually move on from Cesar Ruiz. Either way, you've now got 3 offensive linemen to go with your brand new quarterback. And if that doesn't make a quarterback happy, I don't know what would, except for a couple of big named wide receivers. But this is what I've done. I can feel you Saints fans boiling with anger. I would not have an issue with this draft at all. We have to wait a little ways, but we get that final 3rd round pick 79 overall. In the 3rd round of the 2024 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select defensive tackle Chris Jenkins out of Michigan. Now, we finally addressed defensive line. I think defensive end is a priority for us. And personally, if I go in the middle with defensive tackle, I would probably rather a big guy, a nose tackle type. We're trying to get better at stopping the run. But at the end of the 3rd round here, Chris Jenkins is a pretty good value. Now, he can play the 3 tech. I like Brian Brissy at that spot. I'm thinking Jenkins can play a little defensive end in a 4-3. So can he take Cam Jordan's spot at defensive end? I don't know. Maybe he becomes a backup to supplement Granderson on the other side of the line. Or maybe he stays behind Jordan and eventually takes Jordan's spot. Either way, Chris Jenkins at 280-something pounds is a big enough dude to definitely play the ends. And he can rotate at the 3 every now and then in passing situations or in those NASCAR packages. So I'm okay with Jenkins here. In retrospect, I kind of wish I would have reached for a bigger body. It would have been a reach at that point to go get Jackson out of Texas A&M or Stackhouse out of the SEC. So I went ahead and got the highest rated defensive lineman, and now we've addressed both sides of the trenches, both sides of the line of scrimmage, and maybe Jenkins becomes Cam Jordan's eventual replacement. All right, there you go. We've got 5 draft picks in the first 3 rounds. Instead of having just 2, we have 5 in my draft, and we have a quarterback for the future. So I think right now at this point, wide receiver is something we need to look at. So our next pick, which is pick 97, the first pick in the 4th round, day 3 has started. And I get a phone call from the Chargers. They're at pick 102, and they want to move up to 97. I look at the board, and I like 3 of the wide receivers that are there. They're asking me to move down 5 picks. It's a risk. They're willing to give me a 6th-round pick to do it. Now, if this site had compensatory picks, I would have 2 extra 6th-round picks, and I wouldn't be attracted in picking up another 6th-round pick. But on this site, yeah, I am attracted in picking up that extra 6. So I go ahead and do it. And it's the one move I regret because I did have 1 receiver left on the board, slightly higher than everyone else, and he was taken before 102 came around. But like I said, if the compensatory picks were here, I would have never taken this trade, and I would have gone with the wide receiver. The one I was looking at was Devontae out of North Carolina, Walker. But nope, he's not there. So instead, with the 102nd pick in the 4th round of the 2024 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select wide receiver Johnny Wilson out of Florida State. This is one of those where by the time April comes, he may be a 2nd-round projection, a 1st-round projection, a 3rd-round projection. On this side, he's available in the 4th round, and I go ahead and grab him. He's massive, 6'7". I mean, it's ridiculous height for a wide receiver, 237 pounds. I mean, he's literally built like a tight end. And he runs a 4.42, which is so fast for a guy that big. I imagine a big body like that all over the field. You know, we're losing Michael Thomas this year, so we need an X. We've got A.T. Perry, who's working into that role. And the problem with Johnny Wilson, and the reason why he's available in the 4th round, is because his hands are inconsistent. So you take a shot on a guy like this, maybe he ends up Keyshawn Johnson. Maybe he ends up Kevin White. You never know. But with the 4th round, that is the way I'm going. He's a massive dude, super fast, and he's a 4th-round pick. So Saints address wide receiver there. And we have to wait a ways before we pick again. But later on at the butt end of the 4th round, with pick 126 in the 4th round of the 2024 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select defensive end Jordan Burch out of Oregon. He is a 290-pound defensive end, 6'6". Big guy, and this is a guy that I'm thinking will compete to take Cam Jordan's spot. So now at this point, Chris Jenkins, I'm hoping, can be a guy that can work on the other side of the line, that can work on the inside a little bit of the time. Because if he wants Cam Jordan's spot, he's going to have to now compete with 4th-round pick Jordan Burch out of Oregon. I like what Burch has to offer as far as a defensive lineman goes. You know, if we need a new defensive coordinator if we're going to focus on edge rushers and utilize them properly. So the smaller edge rushers are definitely in play, and I may entertain that in later mock drafts. You know, once the season's over and we see how the coaching staff goes. What I would do personally is try to find a guy to take Cam Jordan's spot. If I did have a smaller end, like let's say Isaiah Foskey, you know, he would be a piece to come in 3rd down, you know, situational pass rush piece. I want a bigger guy because we have issues stopping the run on this defensive line. So we're going to take Jordan Burch. We're going to add him with Chris Jenkins. And now we've addressed the defensive line. And hopefully we can get a pass rush from these guys. And so there you go. Now, when I selected Burch in the fourth round, there were a couple of players there who I knew would not be available in the fifth round, and I was interested in going up and getting one of them. So as soon as I select Burch with 126, I make a phone call to San Francisco and see if they'll give me 127. I offer them the fifth round pick I have, plus a fifth round pick in next year's draft. And that's good enough for them to move down a whole round. They're willing to give me that fourth rounder. And they take 2 fifth rounders from me. It's a good move for me because this talent that I'm eyeing is not the kind of talent you would see in the fifth round next year or in the fifth round this year. So with the very next pick in the fourth round, pick 127 overall, the New Orleans Saints select tight end Luke Lakey out of Iowa. Now, I don't know if his name is Lakey. I don't know how to pronounce it. All I know is he's a tight end from Iowa, and that's good enough for me. Will he be there at the end of the fourth round? Probably not. He is in this mock 6 foot 6 inches, 253 pounds. Any tight end from Iowa is worth getting. It's kind of like a wide receiver or secondary player from Iowa State. You know, that's the way I look at it. Or a wide receiver from LSU. 9 out of 10, they're going to work out if you're a tight end from Iowa. So pretty stoked about this. And that makes 8 picks altogether. And I'm completely happy with this draft. You know, your selection of wide receivers a little iffy. You haven't addressed running back. You haven't addressed linebacker. And you haven't gotten anyone in the secondary. But I'm pretty stoked with this draft. We still have 3 picks to go in the 6th round, and I don't make any more trades. I don't entertain any more trades. And in the 6th round, I could address positions of need like linebacker, running back, safety, or I can address best player available. They're 6th round picks, and if these guys work out, great. So there's, you know, those are your 2 mindsets. You can look for special teams players that are going to make the roster, but you don't expect them to start, or you can take a swing at a really good talent left on the board and see if they turn into something, because if they don't, they're just 6th round picks at this point. Basically all we had to start this day. But in the 6th round, with pick 167 overall, I take another shot at a defensive lineman. Defensive tackle Dwayne Carter out of Duke. I really like Carter out of Duke. And had I not already drafted a 3-tech type in Chris Jenkins, you know, I'd be really excited to get Dwayne Carter here in the 6th round. Carter to me is a late 4, early 5 projection, so I'm going to go ahead and take him here, defensive tackle. So we have a defensive end and 2 smaller defensive tackles to add to our defensive line. I really want a big guy to put in the middle. I didn't do that. We have Colin Saunders on the roster right now. There's always rookie free agents. But Carter's too good of a talent to pass up here. And that's what I'm interested in the 6th round at this point. I'm interested in getting talented players to see if they'll actually make the starting roster or the 53-man active roster. So 5 picks later, we pick 172 overall in the 6th round of the 2024 NFL Draft. The New Orleans Saints select another offensive lineman, offensive guard Zach Zinter out of Michigan. Now, there's the frame of thought that says that Zinter's going to be gone by the 4th round. You know, he's literally a top 3 round talent prospect. The problem is He's had injury concerns, and it's going to make him slip in the draft. So I'm going to take a chance on this guy. If he comes into the pros and ends up injury prone like he was in college, hey, no big deal. Okay, it's a 6th-round pick. But if he comes in and remains healthy and he plays at the level of talent I believe he has, he can easily take James Hurst's spot at left guard. So it's a chance I'm willing to take. Worst case scenario, he can't stay healthy, but he's a backup on our team, and he only has to play every now and then. When someone's down, he comes in at guard for a game or two. Hopefully he's healthy enough to make it through that. Best case scenario, he becomes the starting left guard of the future, and he's got a lot of ability. I think Zach Zinter can also bounce out to right tackle, perhaps, so maybe he'll be a swing guard tackle type. I'm stoked with that, even though that makes 4 offensive linemen in this draft and 3 defensive linemen. That is the area of need where the Saints have to address. That's most urgently in the trenches. You win games in the trenches. So I'm really excited about that pick. And finally, with the 189th overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Saints select their 3rd 6th-round pick. And this is going to be wide receiver Ainias Smith from Texas A&M. I wanted to double dip at wide receiver. I think that Johnny Wilson is a hot or cold type prospect. But with Ainias Smith, you're talking about a smaller guy. 5'10", 200 pounds. He runs a 4.42. So he's basically a slightly slower version of Rashid Shaheed. But he's willing to do some grunt work, and he could work out for you on special teams. I like the possibility of him being a playmaker with the ball in his hands. We expect a lot of Rashid with that. Rashid has a ton of speed. I don't know how imaginative Rashid is with the ball in his hands. We've seen some good stuff so far. I'm hoping Ainias Smith is the type of guy that can use some vision, use some agility, make some moves, and actually, get some yak. So, all right, that's it. That's the end of this particular mock draft. And there is your final roster. You have addressed offensive line with 4 players. You've addressed defensive line with 3 players. You've got yourself the quarterback of the future. And you've got yourself a couple of wide receivers to play with. And a massive find at tight end. So, the letdowns here, kind of wish I would have addressed wide receiver in the end of the 3rd round instead of getting Chris Jenkins. And then in the 4th round, I could have focused more on possibly a linebacker instead of having to draft a wide receiver at that point. So if I would have done anything different, I would have probably taken wide receiver Roman Wilson out of Michigan with that late 3rd round pick. And then in the 4th round, either addressed a bigger defensive tackle or a linebacker. But other than that, I like the way this draft turned out. That's the way it goes. This has been my first, way too early, mock draft for the 2024 NFL Draft for our beloved, bless you boys, the New Orleans Saints. I'll probably do a couple more of these. Everyone I do will be on a different site, so we'll have different player pools to deal with. And as these final 2 games of the regular season play out, there'll be different draft positions to deal with as well. But I will do a couple more before we get into the scouting combine. And at that point, coaching changes will have been made. And we're going to get a more accurate feel for what's actually going to happen. Hope you guys enjoyed it, though. If you're a Saints fan, subscribe to Rosenfeld 10, as I will be focusing on the draft and the offseason often. And until then, I'll talk to you later. Who dat?